Hi, everyone. We hope you guys are having a splendid day out there. Thank you so much for joining us today. It is Mr. Tisco with you once again. And once again, I'm joined by Mrs. Kraft. Mrs. Kraft, how are you?
I am awesome. How are you?
Oh, I am awesome as well. We also have Miss Hoff with us. Miss Hoff, how you doing?
Awesome.
Excellent. Everybody's awesome.
Awesome.
It's going to be an awesome screencast.
Awesome.
So today we're going to continue with Chapter 7, Section 3.
And the first main idea that we're going to talk about is the United States and Native Americans came into conflict in the Northwest Territory.
Yes, so the Northwest Territory, that was the area that the United States was able to gain from the American Revolution. And as soon as the American Revolution was over, all of these American citizens started settling in the Northwest Territory.
Elbow room.
That's right. Problem was, you also had a ton of Native Americans there who didn't like these Americans coming in and taking their land. Now, one tribe in particular that decided to do something about it was the Miami tribe, which was led by Chief Little Turtle. Native leader, Little Turtle, native leader, Little Turtle, native leader, Little Turtle, hero of the Miami tribe, turtle power. Yep, that Little Turtle. Let's go. The Miami tribe was supplied by the British. They were actually giving them weapons to prevent the U.S. from expanding. So the Miami tribe started attacking U.S. citizens in the Northwest Territory. President Washington needs to do something about this, so he's actually going to send in General Anthony Wayne to stop the native attacks. Now, at this point, the British are like, whoa. Washington's getting a little serious about this. Let's stop arming Native Americans. And Little Turtle actually realizes, okay, wait a minute. If Britain's not arming us anymore, we don't really stand a chance against these American troops. So he tries to get his people to stop attacking American citizens. Doesn't work. And eventually, the Miami tribe is going to do battle with General Anthony Wayne's men at the Battle of Fallen Timbers. And General Anthony Wayne and American forces, they win the Battle of Fallen Timbers, and they force the Native Americans to sign the Treaty of Greenville, which ended the war. Now, the Treaty of Greenville was not favorable to Native Americans at all. It gave the U.S. claim to most native lands in the Northwest Territory and guaranteed the safety of the citizens living there. The Native Americans received $20,000 worth of goods and an acknowledgement of their claim to the lands they still held. Now, I know a lot of you might hear that number, 20,000, and be like, oh my God, that's so much money. That's like me giving you a nickel for your house. That's really what it ends up being. So it's not favorable to Native Americans at all.
And that's going to pose a problem in the future because a lot of the Native Americans felt that the people that had signed that treaty had no business signing it because the land wasn't theirs to sign away to begin with.
Exactly. You only had like a handful of Native Americans sign this treaty, and you had other Native groups in that area who had no idea that this treaty existed. Imagine it this way. It's like if somebody showed up at your house one day and said, oh, by the way, your neighbor down the street who you've never met before has just sold me your house. Get out.
Exactly. It causes major problems in the future. All right.
Main idea 3. The Whiskey Rebellion tested Washington's administration.
So in Pennsylvania, whiskey was a very, 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 very popular item. It was so popular that they actually used it as a form of currency, a form of money. And a lot of farmers
made in 2 jugs.
A lot of farmers made their living off of whiskey. Now, since whiskey was such a popular item, the Secretary of the Treasury, Alexander Hamilton, Mrs. Kraft.
Alexander Hamilton.
Thank you.
Alexander Hamilton.
Decided to place a tax on whiskey so he could help generate money for the government.
No taxation without representation.
Settle down. These farmers in Western Pennsylvania, they hated the tax on whiskey. Now, they also kind of had some resentment towards the government because there were Native Americans in the area and there were a lot of Native American attacks. And these farmers felt as though the government wasn't protecting them. So these farmers were like, wait a minute. The government's not doing its job protecting us, and now it's demanding tax money from us?
No taxation
right.
Without representation.
Hey, you have representation. This is not like with Parliament where we didn't have somebody in there. We totally had Congress. you had a representative from Pennsylvania in Congress. That doesn't work here.
Oh,
Exactly. But these farmers, they're not going to listen to any of that. And they're actually start calling themselves the new Sons of Liberty. They start attacking these tax collectors, tarring and feathering them. So Western Pennsylvania gets a little chaotic, and somebody needs to step up and do something about it.
Oh, just imagine a big, tall war hero, current president of the United States, riding in on his famous horse Nelson. George Washington says, "Oh, heck no. These farmers are not going to pull this under my watch." And so he musters his own little army and he starts to ride out to Pennsylvania. And by the time he gets there, he's like, "Where's the problem?" And everybody there's like, "Oh, there's no problem. We love paying the taxes. Oh, please, we want to pay more taxes. Oh, Mr. Washington, don't hurt us. Don't hurt us." So George Washington comes in and he crushes it, crush, and ends the whiskey rebellion. Boop, boop, boop.
And that brings us to our next slide.
main idea 4. In his farewell address, Washington advises the nation.
It's hard to imagine, but Mr. Washington has decided that 2 is good enough. He is 2 and out. He's been the president for 8 years, and he feels that that is long enough punishment. I mean, enough time to be the president. So he says, "I'm going to step down." Now, Mr. Washington, before I talk about his farewell address and you all start crying about it, he did set several precedents that many presidents after him followed. The first of which you already know, he had a nice little cabinet, a group of advisors, which was a wonderful precedent. His reaction to the Whiskey Rebellion showed that a president needs to be strong. He needs to know how to run his country. And then the third precedent that you see him sign here is that after after 2 terms, that's enough. Now, all future presidents are going to follow that precedent up until FDR, and then he doesn't follow it, and then we create an amendment for it. But that's for the future. Now, there's one other precedent that George Washington set that we've never spoken about, but there is an oath in the Constitution that all presidents have to swear when they take the office. And President Washington added the words to that oath, "So help me God." And I believe that every president after it has also added the words, "So help me God." That's the fourth precedent that he set. Now, in his farewell address, he warns America about 3 dangers. And now he said goodbye to the office of the presidency 224 years ago. And these warnings are so relative, so important still today. The first was to stay neutral in foreign affairs so they don't get drawn into war.
But Mrs. Kraft, isn't the United States allied with Great Britain, Germany, Canada, Mexico?
Yeah, we didn't really do a good job with that one.
And haven't we gotten into certain wars?
Yeah, we didn't really listen so well. The second one was to avoid political parties because they weaken government. Oy.
But Mrs. Kraft, don't we have political parties today?
Oh, yeah, we didn't do so good with that one either.
Well, we have one more chance.
All right, the last one, do not take on too much public debt.
But Mrs. Kraft, isn't our public debt today something like $22 trillion?
Oh, Yeah, we didn't really do too well with that one either. I think we were bad listeners.
Yikes.
Because if we would have listened to what Washington warned us over 2 centuries ago, that brilliant man could have changed the future of America.
And just so you guys understand this, and you'll learn more about this in our next screencast, the first 2 political parties of the country pretty much form as soon as Washington leaves office.
Boom. Like, we weren't good listeners. They were probably forming in his cabinet right under his very nose. And he probably saw it happening between Jefferson and Hamilton and was like, I could see this going badly.
Mm-hmm. One thing I do want to mention before we leave, there's one other precedent that I do want to mention, and that's the way the president is greeted. So if a president were to ever walk into the classroom, or if you were ever to see a president and you needed to greet him, you would refer to him as Mr. President. And that actually comes from Washington. He was the one to help come up with that greeting. They initially wanted to say something like, Your Royal Highness of the United States, like something very formal like that. And he's like, no. Just call
Your
me
High Holiness, Mightiness.
It was something
Superness. It was
completely
crazy
ridiculous and
title.
off the wall.
And did you know, Mr. Tiska, that no matter what, you will always be called Mr. President long after you're no longer the president?
Yes.
That stays your title till you die.
Yeah,
Nice.
absolutely. But I believe that's it for us today. Mrs. Kraft, anything else you want to add?
I'm crying that George Washington isn't the president anymore.
Most emotional screencast ever.
Oh, you
Miss Hoff,
just
anything?
wait till we get a little further. She gets even worse.
On that note, guys, have a lovely day. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.